A wee bit of tool time. Apologies, Tim Allen. Welcome back to the Shop on the Channel. This is going to be something a little bit different. I have a neighbor who had a door that needed to be planed a little bit. And my other neighbor said, hey, go on and see if you can help him out because he's having a hard time planing his door. Well, he showed me what he was trying to use, which I immediately said, this isn't going to work. Let me take this home. I'll fix it for you. In the meantime, he's able to sand the door to make it fit. What it is a smooth plane. Not what you call a high-dollar smooth plane. This is what we used to call a hardware store smooth plane. Yeah, I think you can pick these up at the big box stores now. It's a Buck Brothers. Now, Buck Brothers makes some good stuff. This is kind of not that. So first of all, the body of the plane and the cap, and I'm guessing the frog, yep, and the frog are aluminum. Not great metals to make a plane out of. So let's take it apart and see what we have. Let's take the cap off first, and first thing I note is that the hole in the cap for the screw here is too small. It's a tight fit. This should be opened up further for the screw head to get through the cap, hole in the cap. Okay, let's remove the plane and chip breaker, the iron and the chip breaker. Oops. So the iron is, of course, it's steel, yeah. But I mean, there's no edge on it at all. I can run my fingers across that without a problem. It looks to my eye like it's never been sharpened since it was taken out of the box. The chip breaker is okay. I think I need to flatten this a little bit to get a better seal against the plane iron here. And it's chrome plated. And the thing was that this was ground down first, and then it was chrome plated afterwards. So let's put those aside. The frog that's kind of loosey-goosey. The frog is aluminum, and the position is not very good. I said the frog is aluminum, and the bottom edge of the frog, where it rides in the body mouth, is painted, or I think this is paint, not powder coat. The top of the frog here, where the plane iron rides, is also painted in a smooth metal. The one saving grace to it, as I can see, is that the adjuster is actually brass, and it's not terribly loose. It's got a nice. Some of these planes you got to go 3 or 4 rotations in to get it to bite to move the iron, but this is very tight. That's nice. The screw is your standard screw. I don't know what thread it is. It's a fine thread, whatever it is. And of course, it's just basically a round head screw. So that's, the frog needs work, of course. I need to clean off the paint here and clean off the paint here, and probably clean off the paint here. I don't know. We'll see. I maybe not. Now, for the plane body itself, it's aluminum. It's aluminum, which doesn't bode well. I don't know how flat it is. Hold on a second. Let's find out. Okay, good old straight edge. Looking at it, I'll take it out of camera for a bit so I can look at it. Okay, it is flat along this dimension, and it's, well, it's a little slightly rounded in this dimension this way, but flattening a piece of aluminum is tricky without having some machines to do it. I mean, it's not horrible, but it's not great. But it's okay in this dimension here. Let's remove the handles. Yeah, basic machine cut. They did probably 200 or 300 of these at one whack. Again, the surfaces are painted. It's okay for where the knobs are. Yeah, I don't even know what that is. Might be birch or something like that. So there it is. That's all the pieces. So what am I going to do first? Well, the first thing I want to do is actually put an edge on the blade, or iron as we like to call it. So this iron here, like I said, I can run my finger across it and I don't feel anything worth a darn. I need to flatten the back. That's going to take a bit. And then I need to put an edge on. I'll use the Tormek, and we'll have Tormek cam to put an edge on it, and then I use another jig to put the micro bevel on it. After that, I want to fit the frog so it fits better to the plane. I might flatten this a little bit, flatten that a bit, but I definitely want to take the paint off of here. The cap doesn't mean much of anything, except I need to open up this hole right here. So the screw, where is it? It's here somewhere. Anyway, the screw that comes out of the frog, oh, there it is. See, it's kind of snug, like that. So I want to open that hole just a little bit. So first things, oh yeah, and I also want to polish the interface with for the chip breaker. The chip breaker has no real edge on it. You don't want a sharp edge on the chip breaker, but you want it to be thinner than this. That's kind of wide right there. So let's get on with flattening and sharpening the iron first. I brought over some sharpening gear. I want to talk about the plane iron first. This is a stamped out piece of steel. It was kind of flattened on one side. You can tell it was stamped out because you can see the shear marks on the side here. Now, when you look at this picture, if you look at, you can see those semicircular cuts on the back of the iron. You won't see them in camera here, but they're there. Now, what those are milling marks from a fly cutter on a milling machine, probably a CNC milling machine. I don't know. Depends on where this is made. So this would be held down with a magnetic vise, and then the fly cutter would come over, and it's a very wide diameter fly cutter, probably about 10 inches, and it just spins around with a carbide cutting tip, and they'd have a whole bunch of these laid out on this magnetic vise, and it would come along and machine all of them to this kind of flat shape. We'll see how flat it isn't when we start polishing it. Now, unlike makers like Lee Valley and Lee Nielsen, with their plane irons, they put them on. I've been to the Lee Nielsen factory in Waldoboro, Maine, and Warren, Maine, and they chuck their plane irons up into the magnetic vise, and they have a precision grinder machine that runs across it this way, and it only cuts in one direction, and it grinds the surface very smooth and very flat. They do both sides, so it's perfectly indexed, same thickness all the way through. I'm not sure about this. I might take a micrometer to it and see. What I have here is a granite indexing stone, and these are precision stones used for precision measurements on instruments and things and whatever. You can get one from Lee Valley or Rockler. I think it's 12, no, it's about 14 by 10, something like a 13 by 10. And this surface is usually indexed, cut, and polished to within 10,000ths of an inch from corner to corner. This one's got some stuff on it I got to clean off. And along with that, I have my pouch of multiple grits of wet dry paper for polishing and sanding metal. And the way this works is I'm going to get a sprayer, put some water on the vise, take a piece of sandpaper, put it on here, grit up, of course. Take the iron and start running it across back and forth like that. Now, this will take a while. Let me demonstrate how I do it, and then we'll go from there. Oh, off camera. I'm going to start with a piece of 600, spritzer, and now that sucks it down real nice to indexing stone, and then I leave it on the edge here so I can run the plane iron back and forth. I'm starting with 600 because how coarse the milling marks are on the back of this. We should get a pretty big picture, quick picture of how flat this actually is. It's not too bad. I don't know if this will show up on camera, but I've got some polishing going on here, so I'm going to move forward ahead of the hole. And I got some polishing going on here, but nothing in the middle. So there is a bit of a bend to it. So let's do some more of the polishing thing. Yeah, the paper will move until you start it. You see the shine in there? It's showing up. It's beginning to cut through those milling marks. This is probably a relatively soft, I don't know what the rock roll hardness of this is, but maybe not quite as hard as a regular plane iron. But let's continue on until we get a polish. Now, if you really want tools that are already polished in the back, like chisels and whatever, Blue Spruce Tools mirror polishes the back of their chisels and I think their plane irons. So it comes out of the box already polished for a price. Okay, I'm at 1,000 grit right now, and you got a polish line here and you got a polish line here. There's obviously a divot between the plane edge and here, but this is going to be great for what I want to do is just to put the final edge on here. So that was from 600 grit, 800 to 1,000 grit. Now we're at the Mighty Tormek. This is actually an older Tormek T3. It's the 8-inch grinder. It's all I could afford at the time, so I got what I could afford at the time. It's been replaced by the T4 and then the larger T8, which is the 10-inch. Anyhow, the thing about the Tormek, we have, by the way, we have Tormek Cam right here. We'll turn on Tormek Cam in a minute. The thing about the Tormek is you do work from the front and from the back. Cue Tormek Cam. So what I mean is, this is the tool rest, and it's got places of tool rest here and here. So this is horizontal, back here it's vertical. So the tool rest goes in here, and I'm not setting up to do anything. And then you have these jigs for doing various cutting tools. Well, this is, of course, a skew chisel. Not a skew chisel, but a chisel for the lathe. And it goes on this jig and on the tool rest, and you start the tool up, and you go like this, and it grinds a nice thumbnail, I guess, on the lathe tool. Now, you also can work from the back. So what I've done is I've set this up so I pull a pin here, and I can rotate the machine around, and now I can work from the back. And now this tool rest goes in here vertical. So you can, planes, on the other hand, now are ground against the rotation of the wheel like that. We'll get onto that in a minute. One thing I will add is that we purchased CBN wheel. I had to look it up, what that stands for, because I haven't had to use it for a while, and it's cubic boron nitride, second hardness to diamonds. This one has the aluminum wheel, so it's embedded in aluminum, and you don't use water with the CBN aluminum wheels. You can use water, but they say dry them off as quickly as you possibly can. But I can run this dry, because it's designed to run dry. I never have to dress it because it's nice and flat. I believe it's made of 70-75 aluminum, but I'm not sure. And to clean it, I use the good old PB Blaster and a rag, and that cleans it off. And then I have a gooey compound I put on it for a little bit of lube. But that's it. So now let's set this up so I can do the sharpening of that really ugly plane iron. I pulled the pin and turned it so it's more facing the camera. And hopefully I don't block the camera too much when I'm trying to do this. But I have to set up the angle from here to here for the plane iron to get ground specifically on the angle here, which is 25 degrees. Plane iron is 25 degrees. They have a little jig for that. I set it up to an 8-inch wheel and 25 degrees. See? 8-inch wheel and 25 degrees. It is plastic, but it's a hard plastic, so it works pretty well. The jig is the SE76. They all have numbers, and this slides in here just like this. You know, the trash guys are out there if you can hear that beeping. And you tighten it down, and you slide it on the rest, and now I can see, just looking at it, that there's a gap here. You can't see it on camera, but there's a gap. It's this too far this way. And if I take the jig and lay it on there, so this jig goes on the wheel and then goes on the plane iron, and there's a gap that I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's a gap right there. And the way to fix that is to lower the plane iron down, so I'm getting a greater angle to the wheel, like this. And I'm almost there. So what I want to do is I want to close the gap between this black part of the jig and the plane iron itself, and I can see a little bit of light through here with some glare, which gives me a good indication of what I'm looking for when I get there. And that almost there, almost there. All right, I'm there. So it's set at the correct angle here. Now tighten down tighten down these knobs in the back to lock the support bar in place. And now I've got my angle set between the plane iron and the wheel. And to make it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but as close as you can get as possible. And to check that, I'm going to take some Sharpie, put some Sharpie across here, and then put this back on, and just to do this. Yep. Actually, I do have to make another adjustment. This thing is so out of square that I'm going to almost have to go with what I got. You know, this also has, as you can see on here, it has angles, so you can check angles. Just make sure it's actually 25 degrees, and it is. Normally, I have a light behind here, and my head is stuck in here. I just don't want to block any camera. So it's basically more hit and miss than it usually is. Okay, there we are. You can't see it easily in camera, but where my fingernail is, that's the center of the iron, and that's where it's starting to scrape. So let's go ahead and do some of that sharpening stuff. So I turn it again this way, put the peg back in place. So now, what I can do is I can work this back and forth as it turns, and that'll of course be on Torment Cam. Well, I've got it set up with the right angle here, correct angle. It's slightly out of square, so I had to adjust that, and it's all ready to go now. This is the goop, is the slick stick, and I just need a little dab on the wheel for this job. Just take a second, not pressing down, just let it rest on the wheel. Now we're going to do the sharpening. I'll check it as I go through and make sure everything's going well. And we're done. We'll do the micro bevel, and we'll do that with a different jig. So now, cue some time lapse and some music, and let's get to grinding. And there we go. I have got a nice, shiny, sharp edge to my plane iron. It's a little concave because of the round wheel, but the concavity, the diameter is so big it's irrelevant. I have to do a little bit of deburring on the back, as always. Get a little burr on the back. Next thing to do is to put the micro bevel on there, over to the bench, and take care of that. I really, really need to put a light here. And now the final step is the micro bevel. And to me, after you've got a really nice edge on the plane iron, this is the most important thing you're going to do in the steps of sharpening, is get the micro bevel correct. Now, I could have just taken that Tormac and jacked it up five degrees, so I got a Tormac would do my micro bevel. That's a 600 grit wheel. It's a little bit coarse for that, although even at 600 grit, it does give you a nice shine. Yep. This is 1,000 grit stone, and this is my Wood River. Link in the description. Jig for setting the micro bevel with the honing guide. And the way it works is, this is 25 degrees, so I want 30 degrees. I want a 5-degree micro bevel. So in camera, I set the jig to that 30 degrees there, and put the honing guide on, and that will give you a micro bevel. And I don't need to take too many swipes to do it. So let's get that set up. Now the honing guide itself has beveled. It's beveled here and here, so that it can hold on to the plane iron very nicely. And then it dials in. It's a double screw. It goes in from both sides. So now it's got a nice solid hold on the plane iron, but I have the plane upside down, which is dumb. Here we go. And then I take it to the honing guide and loosen it slightly. I'm going to do this on the bench. Bring it down to my 30 degrees mark on the honing guide. Split the line. Now I've got my 5-degree. I'll have my 5-degree thingy. Yeah, micro bevel. So let's get this out of here. This has been soaking for about. It is a whetstone, yeah. It's not a sandstone. It's a manufactured whetstone, but it's been sitting for about 20 minutes. Then it goes into the stand. Now you can add more water as you see fit. So now I take the honing guide, make sure I keep the wheel in the center and flat. Let's do this closer. That's better. So a little bit more water, get a little shine. This is soaking wet. So you want to keep this wheel, got to keep it in camera, keep this wheel flat. I prefer 2 wheels, but c'est la vie. This is a really good jig. Make sure the wheel stays flat on the stone, so there's no wobble. And the plane iron is nice and flush across there. And then we give it some swipes. Yeah, a little bit more. Now, this won't show up in camera, I'm sure, but there's a micro bevel. It's not going to show up, but it's there. Now, the other thing is I want to take a couple of swipes on the flat, on the back of the stone, because there'll be a tiny little burr back there. And there it is. Ooh. You can't see it, but I'm shaving hair off my arm. Excellent. So, that's it. The plane iron is ready. It has a micro bevel. The burr has been removed. It's relatively nicely sharp. It's nicely sharp. I'm kidding. A little bit more. Yeah, that's got a nice edge on it now. So we'll put that aside, and we'll put all this stuff away. And with that, we'll end the video here. The next video will work on the plane body and get that kind of more precise and cleaned up. I'll take a couple of swipes on the chip breaker to make sure that that's nice and smooth to fit on the back of the plane iron, because yeah, it needs that's pretty damn good the way it is, but I want to do it anyway. So with that, make great things out of wood and maybe tune up some tools.